Dylan Wang tried to apologize, but Xunyu's response in front of Bai Lu and Wang Yiba went viral. The night was meant to be quiet, a simple rehearsal for a scene that no one outside the studio was supposed to witness. Yet within minutes, it became the most talked about moment across the internet. Dylan Wang walked into the room with a heaviness in his steps, his eyes dim but determined, as if every ounce of courage had been pulled together for what he was about to say. Xunyu was already there, her arms folded across her chest, her eyes sharp but unreadable. Beside her sat Bai Lu, calm yet restless, as though she knew a storm was about to unfold. And standing silently near the door was Wang Yiba, watching with the quiet intensity that only he could carry. The room was tense, filled with silence, so thick it could break hearts. Dylan began to speak, his voice low and heavy. He admitted mistakes, he admitted lies, he admitted the one thing he had avoided for so long, that his silence had caused pain not just to Xunyu but to everyone caught in the whirlwind of rumors and secrets. The weight of his apology pressed into the room, and though his words were soft, they echoed with a truth no one could ignore. He ended with a line that shook even the crew, saying he never wanted to lose Xunyu again, not as a friend, not as a partner, not as someone who once mattered more than he had the courage to admit. For a moment no one spoke. The world seemed to pause as Dylan's words hung in the air. Fans watching through leaked clips later described it as the longest silence they had ever witnessed. Xunyu's expression remained unchanged, her lips pressed tightly together, her eyes locked on Dylan, as if she could see straight through him. Then, slowly, she stood up. The sound of her chair sliding against the floor was louder than his entire apology. She looked at him, her voice steady, sharp, and filled with emotions that even she could barely control. She told Dylan that apologies were easy, but trust was not. She reminded him of nights when she had cried in silence, of the times she had to smile in front of the cameras while her heart felt broken, of the moments when she wished he had simply been honest. She said she was not rejecting his apology, but she was rejecting the idea that words alone could erase what had been done. Every fan who later watched the leaked footage said the same thing, that it was not what she said but how she said it, with a voice that carried years of hidden pain. Bai Lu's eyes widened. She had never expected Xunyu to speak with such raw honesty in front of everyone. The air around her felt heavy, and though she tried to remain composed, her hands trembled as she tried to process what was unfolding. The tension was unbearable. Some swore Bai Lu looked as though she wanted to scream, others believed she wanted to comfort Xunyu, but she did nothing. She just sat frozen, watching a moment that was too powerful to interrupt. And then Wang Yiba moved. He stepped forward, his presence suddenly commanding the entire room. He did not raise his voice, but his words cut sharply. He said that Dylan's apology might have been sincere, but sincerity means nothing without action. He said Xunyu had been carrying her pain alone for far too long, while Dylan hid behind silence. And then, the line that made the internet explode. Wang Yiba turned to Dylan and said, "If you are truly sorry, then prove it. Not to the fans, not to the world, but to the one person you hurt the most." That was the exact moment the video went viral. Millions of fans watched as Xunyu, standing tall despite her tears, looked Dylan in the eye and said, "I do not need an apology, I need truth." Those words echoed like thunder across every platform. Clips spread within minutes, hashtags filled the trending lists, and comments flooded in from fans around the world. Some defended Dylan, saying at least he had the courage to apologize, while others sided with Xunyu, praising her for her strength and refusal to be swayed by words alone. What made the moment even more explosive was Bai Lu's reaction. She finally spoke, her voice shaking as she asked Dylan why he chose now, in front of everyone, to finally admit what he had hidden. The way she asked it made fans believe she already knew part of the truth, but hearing it out loud was too much to bear. Her question added fuel to the fire, sparking endless speculation about what Dylan had confessed in private and what had never been revealed. The video ended with Dylan standing in silence, Xunyu walking away with her head held high, Bai Lu holding back tears, and Wang Yiba watching with a gaze that was impossible to read. It was not just a scene, it was history in the making. Fans are still debating its meaning, dissecting every expression, every pause, every word. The internet did not simply watch this moment, it lived it. Fans wrote thousands of comments about how Shinyu's strength inspired them, how Dylan's apology left them torn between sympathy and disappointment, how Bailu's reaction revealed more than words ever could, and how Wang Yiba's calm, yet piercing voice carried the weight of truth. This was not just about four celebrities. This was about pain, truth, and the courage to confront what had been hidden for too long. And as the world continues to replay those few minutes over and over, one thing is certain. This story is far from over. The silence in the room grew heavier as Dylan's apology echoed through the walls. His voice had cracked, his hands trembled, and for a brief moment, it seemed as if time had paused to watch history unfold. Bailu sat frozen, her eyes darting between Xinyu and Wang Yiba, trying to make sense of what was about to happen. The crew members who were supposed to be working stood still, their cameras lowered, almost afraid to interrupt the storm that was building in front of them. Xinyu finally moved. She rose from her chair slowly, every step toward Dylan charged with emotions that no one could yet decipher. The room braced itself. Dylan tried to meet her eyes, but Xinyu's gaze carried a force that made even Wang Yiba shift uncomfortably where he stood. When she spoke, her voice was steady, sharp, and filled with weight. She did not raise her tone, yet every word cut deeper than any shout could have. You think an apology can erase the silence, the nights when you chose someone else's voice over mine, the times I waited only to realize I was invisible, Xinyu said, her eyes not blinking. The words hung in the air, vibrating like a string that had been plucked too hard. Bailu's lips parted slightly, her breathing uneven, as though the truth behind Xinyu's words was piercing her as well. Wang Yiba remained quiet, his gaze fixed on Dylan, almost as if waiting to see if the man had the strength to respond at all. Dylan's chest rose and fell heavily. He had prepared for anger, for tears, for rejection, but what Xinyu had given him instead was worse. It was truth. Raw, undeniable, and impossible to counter. He took a step forward, but Xinyu immediately lifted her hand, stopping him in his tracks. This is not about whether you regret it today, she continued, her voice unwavering. It is about the choices you made when you thought no one would ever find out. The atmosphere was electric, a storm threatening to break. Cameras that had been lowered were now subtly raised again, desperate to capture the scene that was spiraling into a viral moment before anyone could even upload it. Bailu's hand moved nervously across her lap, her knuckles turning white. She knew that Xinyu's words were not just for Dylan, but also for her, a warning that nothing hidden stays buried forever. And then, unexpectedly, Wang Yiba's voice broke the silence. Calm, deep, and commanding, he said, "Enough. If this is how truths must come out, then let everyone hear them. No more hiding." The entire room gasped, for his words were not just a command. They were a spark, igniting the possibility that even deeper secrets were about to unravel. And just when everyone thought the storm had finally reached its peak, the room was left trembling with more questions than answers. Dylan's apology was not enough. Xinyu's words cut deeper than anyone imagined. Bailu's silence spoke volumes, and Wang Yiba's final statement promised that the real truth was still waiting to surface. This was not the end, it was only the beginning. What happens when every secret finally comes to light, when the masks fall, and when love, betrayal, and regret collide in front of the world to see? Stay with us, because the next chapter will shake everything you thought you knew about them.